What up, guys? Shavua Tov. Okay, I was thinking to jump back into Shaar HaBitachon, the gate of trust, because everything stems with trust and bitachon. And I was thinking about doing this as like a daily thing on Instagram Live, which I think could be great to keep me on point, and then you guys can tap in as well. So this is just from the introduction. So you can get this if you like. Gate of Trust, Shaar HaBitachon, and it's Rabbeinu Bachya. So this is the intro, and well, this is the forward. We're gonna go to how long did someone wrote? Fun. So this is the forward, and we'll dive into the intro. And I don't know if I could do it every day, but I'll do it as much as I can, and then we can join together. So you guys can get this. You should be able to get it on Amazon. There's a lot of different versions, but this one is put together by the person, I believe, who put together Chayenu. So Chitas from the Chabad, the daily learning that you're doing. And there's a lot of epic commentary from the Rebbes of Chabad, and those are in the footnotes, and I'll try to get to some of those, or all of them, because they're amazing. So right now, in the forward, I'm just jumping to the section called The Science of Bitachon. Bitachon is trust in Hebrew. So I'm just going to read this, and then another day we'll jump into the introduction and just keep, God willing, moving through it. And this is awesome because it goes through, it explains the different worlds, the Kabbalistic worlds, and how we view them. And this Seder Hishtalshalut, this sort of contraction of the infinite light, as it moves through these worlds. And I think it's done in a really epic way that you should be able to understand, even if you don't have that knowledge prior, hopefully. And you can let me know, because there's a comment section here. So, a useful and highly inspiring tool to cultivate bitachon, which is the book that we're on, which is trust in the divine, is the insight into how bitachon, trust, functions. Not its definition, application, or consequences, but the spiritual mechanism by which it operates. Such a precious gift of insight, which has only become available to the average Jew in recent times, allows us to recognize what we are accomplishing and understand why trust, bitachon, is so effective for the kind of wisdom we turn to Jewish mysticism, right? So Kabbalistic tradition reveals the divine structure behind creation, the ways in which God relates to his creatures, and the effects of our deeds. Its wisdom is metaphoric, esoteric, impenetrable to the uninitiated. It has been redeemed in the extensive teachings of Chabad Hasidut, which is what we were talking about before, that explore and explain these concepts on intellectual platters that are well within reach, in addition to offering original revelations of its own. Perhaps too briefly, we outline the Kabbalah of Bitachon, of trust, as elucidated in Chasidut. So we're going to jump in a little bit to understand what this is. God is infinite in the most perfect sense. Anything that we consider existing other than God himself is limited in some form. So in the Torah it says, En od milvado. There's literally nothing other than godliness, aside from the constrictions and us not understanding or not being able to see, because we have to have free will. So there's this idea of this concealment and how we tap in. How do we tap into to this revelation, to this revealed state? And also the sages say, Hakol biyadei shamayim chutz miyirat shamayim. So it's like everything is in the hands of the Creator, aside from the fear or awe of him. So, and the way to mitaken it, the way to fix this and understand, and to sort of cultivate this awe, because there's the idea of yirat shamayim, this awe, or some translate as fear of heaven, and then there's this ahava, this love. So we want to be able to like tap into both of those things. And the idea of when we're doing tshuva, which is to like the teshuv hey, which is to return ourselves in alignment back with the Creator. So when we do it through ahava, through love, and through yirah, through awe, then the idea is that anything that we've done that's disconnected, we call them sins or whatever, they were disconnecting from that alignment, we could flip those into merits. All right, I love the comments. Yeah, I will. I'm probably not going to post this live after. Generally, I'll post it on my feed, just enough to be able to download it, and then I'll probably put it on YouTube or whatever, as I've like accumulated a few that I hopefully keep going on with. Anyway, thank you all for whoever's joining. All right, so this is this idea of the infinite oneness and of this concept of en od milvado. As we jump into this, the idea of bitachon in and of itself and trust is realizing and coming into this higher consciousness and understanding and being fully in alignment with the reality that all there is God, right? So we seem separate from each other and from God, but the more we tap into this understanding in our soul, that which unites us, then the more we can exist sort of in this redemptive state. But when we tap into disconnecting from this reality and alignment and redemptive state, then we're actually tapped into the physical, the constrictive, and the finite rather than the infinite. So we're going to talk about a lot of this as we go into this epic teachings. So God chose to bridge the divide to allow for the creation of the spiritual and physical universes through a process described as tzimtzum, contraction. God's infinite divine energy contracts itself through a series of powerful acts of self-concealment that screen and condense its light. Each subsequent tzimtzum further conceals divinity between one contraction and the next. So there's the seder hishtalshalut is what it's called in Hebrew, and it's this idea of as it's going down, the concealment is becoming stronger. So as it goes through the tree of life, the sfirot, but also the levels of the world, then it comes to our world, and this is basically the world where it is not in the revealed state, and that God is kind of hidden himself in nature. Melech HaOlam is what we call God in Hebrew, one of the names. I love these comments. So Melech HaOlam, so etymologically related to Ne'elam, which is hidden. So the idea is the master of the universe has hidden himself in the universe so that we could exist and so that free will could exist. So this is this idea, and this happens through the tzimtzum, which we're talking about right now. Each subsequent tzimtzum further conceals divinity between one contraction and the next. However, the newly condensed divine energy radiates and creates a new realm of existence, or world. In this way, all of creation forms a systematic chain of descent, seder hishtalshalut, which we were talking about before, with God's infinite light at the very top, and with our physical universe at the furthest and darkest extreme. And we're going to talk about what that is in these four worlds, or five if you're talking about the Adam HaKadmon. There are countless contractions and countless realms, but generally speaking, the Kabbalists group the cosmos into four primary worlds. The first is closest to the divine source, and they call it Atzilut, from Etzel, close to God. Although that is the only relatively speaking. Yeah, translation, it taps in, yeah. So it's actually, I love it because if you watch I did a talk with Deepak Chopra around my second book, The Exodus of Darkness, and he actually talks about a lot of these concepts and how they exist in these other thoughts that came from the Kabbalistic Jewish tradition, but they've somehow found themselves in the Eastern religion and all these other things, and brings basically the pronunciations and these words and how close they are to the Hebrew, and it was really cool. So you can check that out if you go on YouTube and just type in Deepak Chopra and Eretz Safar. You can check it out. All right, so there are countless contractions and countless realms, but generally speaking, the Kabbalists group the cosmos into four primary worlds. The first is closest to the divine source. They call it Atzilut, as I mentioned, from Etzel, close to God. This powerful and pristine realm is ultimately divine and utterly good and perfect, cannot sense its own existence, and therefore is certainly no room for evil. So as we come into this world, in this Torah, not the Torah da tikastima, like this Torah that exists beyond the world and past it. When we're in our world, it starts with Breshit, which is a bet, which is two. So this idea is in the Atzilut, there is no separation, there is no two. It's only oneness. And this is also kind of, when you go into the Pardes story, the ones that didn't make it, not Rabbi Akiva, it was because they didn't understand this unity. And he said, don't look at it and say, this water and this water, or this, that they were separate. And so the idea is that as we go into our world, then there is this separation. So there is the godliness, and then there's the sitra achar, that which opposes godliness, literally. The second realm, almost impossibly removed from Atzilut, is Bria, creation. It's still a highly sacred realm, but it harbors the initial possibility for divine expressions other than revealed goodness. This is a result of the components of Bria being able to sense themselves as independently existing, although they simultaneously sense their utter dependence on God's light for that existence. So a third realm, far lower in terms of concealment, is the world of Yitzirah, formation. And one of the comments was talking about Sefer Yitzirah, which Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan has an incredible translation to the different traditions and different manuscripts of the Sefer Yitzirah, which isn't a very lengthy book. It's very brief, but he goes into the different ones, and it's beyond. Evil emerges in some form in this world of Yitzirah, to the point that the Kabbalists describe Yitzirah as containing half good and half bad. So now we're jumping into this reality as a potential of opposites. And that's the idea that we can, and the idea is that the world's being sustained and recreated at every moment. So if that is the case, then we should never worry about what we did before. Of course, we should apologize and all that, but never think that we can't change course. If the world's recreated at every moment, then we can recreate our own reality and where we want to go at that exact moment. Finally, our material world is referred to as asiyah, action. Here, God's light is utterly hidden, and our sense of independent existence is absolute. This world is overwhelmingly evil by default, meaning that a strong effort is required to form any connection with God. Yet, as unpleasant as it sounds, our corporeal world is actually the crowning purpose of all existence. So all of these other worlds exist for this world and for us to reveal the godliness in this world. All the upper realms exist to facilitate and sustain our existence so that we can fulfill God's desire for our effort-laden relationship with Him, specifically amid a reality that denies His divinity and conceals His goodness. So that's the purpose of this creation. We can now understand that everything God does is good. As the Talmud, the Gemara tells us, each blessing, every act of creation or nurture, all of which flows to us from God, filters through the above described systems, these four worlds that we're talking about. Exactly. I love the comments. IG and Meta exist for this exact moment. I'm going to screenshot that one because it's amazing. I love it. Okay. The blessing first enters as pure and sacred goodness in the highest realm, Atzilut. It then makes its way down the entire system until it emerges into our tangible reality. There's a catch. As the flow of energy descends towards us, it is repackaged by the nature of expression intrinsic to each subsequent realm. In other words, the concealment of divinity in the lower world affects the flow of divine nurture, giving rise to the possibility that the goodness may become obscured. Indeed, when the blessing finally lands in our lap, it may appear in the most negative of disguises. It is goodness, but it can look and feel like negativity or even calamity. That is why small blessings are more likely to arrive as perceptible goodness. The smaller blessings do not invite the same resistance at each stage of contraction of the divine flow. By contrast, when an abundance of divine goodness is poured into the system, it can be too intense for the limitations of the spiritual dynamic of our world to handle, and the resultant pushback can result in disguised goodness, which dresses the flow in terms that our world cannot tolerate. So needless to say, Hashem, God, is not limited to this process as previously mentioned. He can override it as He deems necessary. When that occurs, God's all-encompassing and infinite goodness is revealed to us in a manner that we can appreciate as tremendous blessings. It's specifically with bitachon, with trust, that we proactively trigger such a revelation. So when we believe it and when we're in the space of full emunah, which is faith and full bitachon trust, then we can manifest it and bring it down in this universe and in this reality, in this redemptive consciousness, the higher consciousness. I just posted something kind of about this, tied into this week's Torah portion on my IG, so you can go check that out after. And this paragraph is amazing. I'm going to end, there's two more paragraphs, and then I'm going to end and we'll pick it back up. when we face hardship and choose to respond with firm bitachon, with firm trust, we are advancing a relationship with God that bypasses the spiritual system. We recognize that whatever God does is good, thereby associating our physical world of Asiyah experience with its purely positive origin in the realms of Atzilut. We trust that what appears negative is nothing more than that, an outward appearance. In essence, it is good. God responds to such bitachon, to such trust, by allowing the appearance to fall away. He loosens the grips of the spiritual contractions, permitting the goodness to flow unhindered into reality. So it's basically a cheat code to get out of the constricted state and what you view as something bad, and turn that into the goodness that eventually you'll see that it actually is, because it's for your ultimate good in the end. So we're right now in this one part of the story, we're not able to see how the whole thing plays out or why this is happening at this moment. This insight greatly strengthens our bitachon. Without it, we must believe that whatever God does is good, and elevate that belief to the point that it becomes trust. Now, however, we know and can explain that reality, which adds power to our degree of trust. Most importantly, this sacred knowledge makes trust in God far easier to achieve in the first place. So we're going to stop there. This is the book Shaar HaBitachon, Gate of Trust, Rabbeinu Bachya, and we'll pick it up again. Feel free to send me a DM. Let me know what you think. If you want any comments, suggestions, whatever. Would love to hear from you guys, and Shavua Tov.